Welcome to the Bay. Look, if you're trying to figure out your next PC build, I get it. The GPU market can feel like a total mess, right? It's like navigating a stormy sea. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to find the perfect graphics card for that 1440 sweet spot by pitting two of the newest heavy hitters against each other.
So here's the big question for your build. Are you going to go for the super efficient RTX 5060 Ti with all that VRAM? Or do you go all in on the raw, unadulterated power of the RTX 5070? Yeah, that's what we're here to figure out.
All right, let's meet our fighters. In one corner, you've got the RTX 5060 Ti, and it's packing a whopping 16 gigs of VRAM. They're calling this one the Efficiency King. And in the other corner, the RTX 5070, which is basically being sold as the undisputed champ for pure 1440p rasterization. You know, just raw gaming performance without all the ray tracing bells and whistles. It's kind of like two totally different approaches to get to the same finish line.
Okay, but let's just cut to the chase, right? For us gamers, it's all about one thing: frames per second. So let's see how these two actually stack up when the action gets heavy.
And wow, this chart, it tells a pretty clear story right out of the gate. We're looking at Cyberpunk 2077, 1440p ultra settings, a real beast of a game. The 5060 Ti, it pulls a totally respectable 64 FPS, very playable. But then you look at the 5070, and it just leaps ahead to 82 FPS. I mean, that is a huge difference. That's the kind of jump you can absolutely feel, especially if you're rocking a high refresh rate monitor.
And here's the key takeaway, really. That Cyberpunk number, it's not a fluke. Pretty much across the board at 1440p, you are looking at a solid 20 to 25% performance boost when you step up to the RTX 5070. That's significant.
Yeah, and you can see it right here in these other benchmarks. Look at Warzone. The 5070 is hitting 150 FPS. I mean, that's just perfect for a 144Hz monitor. Even in something lighter like Valorant, it just pulls way ahead. So yeah, that 20 to 25% lead, it's pretty much a constant. If you're someone who just can't compromise on getting the highest frame rates possible, the 5070 is, well, it's making a really strong case for it.
But hang on, raw frames are only one part of the equation, right? We need to look beyond just the FPS numbers and get into the nitty-gritty, the specs, the power draw, because that stuff, the hardware underneath, is what creates that performance gap in the first place, and it can seriously impact your entire build.
All right, let's look at the tail of the tape here. This is interesting. The 5060 Ti has that massive 16 gigs of VRAM, but it's on a narrower 128-bit bus. The 5070, on the other hand, has less VRAM, 12 gigs, but on a much wider 192-bit bus. And then, look at the power draw. This is huge. The 5060 Ti sips just 180 watts, while the 5070 is way thirstier at 250 watts. That's not a small difference, and it has some big implications for your PSU and your case cooling. So what does all this tech jargon actually mean for your build? Well, first, that 16 gigs of VRAM on the 5060 Ti, that's amazing future-proofing for games that are just going to keep eating up more and more memory. Second, that lower power draw is a huge deal. It means you might not need to buy a new power supply, and it's going to run cooler. And finally, don't forget about physical size. The 5070 is usually a bigger, beefier card. You absolutely have to check your case clearance before you click that buy button. Now, the good news is both cards get that amazing DLSS4 and frame generation technology. That's a huge win no matter which one you pick. But the real difference maker is under the hood. The 5070 is just loaded with more CUDA cores and, importantly, more RT cores. Those are the little engines that do all the heavy lifting for ray tracing. So when you decide to flick that ray tracing switch on, all that extra hardware gives the 5070 a serious advantage. Okay. We've talked frames, we've geeked out on specs. Now it's time for the part that really matters to most of us: the price. How much is all this performance going to cost you? And is that power boost from the 5070 actually worth the extra money? First up, the RTX 5060 Ti. You're getting that awesome 16 gigs of VRAM, and it's usually sitting at a pretty competitive price point of around $429. Now, if you want to make the jump to the more powerful RTX 5070, you got to open your wallet a bit wider. It's going to set you back about $549. So we're talking $120 more. And that's really the core of the decision, isn't it?
Which leads us to the ultimate question. Which card is the true value king? Which one gives you the most bang, the most frames for your buck?
And the winner for pure FPS per dollar is, drumroll please, the RTX 5060 Ti. Yeah, it might be a little surprising, but when you actually do the math, its lower price tag means you're getting more performance for every dollar you spend. That, Plus, the huge VRAM buffer makes it a seriously compelling choice if you're trying to build smart. So, we've got all this info: performance, specs, price. How do you actually pick the right one for your rig? Well, it really just comes down to what kind of gamer you are. Let's break it down into a few simple scenarios. First up, let's say you're the esports gamer. You're all about competitive titles like Valorant, Fortnite, Warzone. Your number one priority is cranking out insanely high frame rates, probably at 1080p or maybe 1440p on low settings.
If that's you, honestly, the choice is easy. It's the RTX 5060 Ti. It's going to give you all the frames you could possibly need in those games. Plus, it saves you money and it's easier on your power bill and your cooling. It's a total no-brainer.
Okay, but what if you're the complete opposite? You're the kind of gamer who wants to max out every single graphical setting, turn on ray tracing, and just get lost in those beautiful cinematic single-player worlds at 1440p.
Yeah, if that's your goal, you've got to go for the RTX 5070. That extra 20 to 25% performance and those extra RT cores, that's what's going to give you that smooth, absolutely stunning experience with no compromises. It's built for that.
All right, last one. What about the small form factor builder? You love those tiny, compact cases where every single watt of heat and every millimeter of space is absolutely critical. For you, the champion is the RTX 5060 Ti, hands down. That low 180-watt power draw is a game changer in a small case. It means it's so much easier to keep things cool and quiet, and you don't need some beastly power supply to run it. It's the perfect GPU for a killer sleeper build.
Whew, we have covered a ton of ground. But look, if you want to dig even deeper into all the benchmark data, you can find our full, in-depth analysis and a bunch of other awesome buying guides over at bestgpusforgaming.com.
So, there you have it. The choice is yours. Are you going with the smart, efficient, high-value RTX 5060 Ti? Or are you splurging on the uncompromising 1440p monster, the RTX 5070? I'm curious. Which GPU are you docking in your new build? Drop a comment and let us know. Keep it cool and keep building.